Hey everyone, I'm Allison Marsh. You're watching NBC News Now. Here is what's happening.
The TV doesn't do it justice. I mean, it is really, really traumatic to see the collapse of a massive structure like that.
A building collapse near Miami kills at least one person. We are live with the search and rescue mission. And the big question, how did this happen?
We had a really good meeting. To answer the direct question, we have a deal.
We have a deal. So what's in the new bipartisan infrastructure bill?
It pretty much gives you an indication of who I was as a person. Smooth, lush, no hard edges.
From slam dunks to smooth finish, Scottie Pippen has a brand new bourbon. The basketball legend joins me live. We start today with the building collapse in Surfside, Florida. Here are some folks who watched it all go down.
We hear like a really big rumble, and we think that it was like a motorcycle, you know, like classic, early in the morning. And we turn around and we just see a like cloud of dust just coming our way.
When the dust cleared, there was the back half of the building, or back 2/3 of the building was gone. It's down to the ground.
Shock. I mean, the first thing I looked, I saw the address, and I was like, that's the Champlain Towers, and my family has a unit here that we rent out, and the first thing I thought about was about the lady that rents there.
Debris was completely covering everything. Like, it was not passable. And so we turned the other direction to go down the staircase. And that's how we were thinking we were going to get out. But unfortunately, the door was jammed.
Basically, our unit, like the whole other side of the building collapsed. We don't even have like the unit anymore. It doesn't exist anymore.
NBC News reporter Vaughn Hilliard is there. Vaughn, the images of that building just pancaked. It's horrifying to think that happened with people inside. So what is the latest there on finding people and getting them out?
Yeah, good afternoon, my friend. We're waiting a press conference from local officials here. It's slated to take place in the next 25 minutes here. We're hoping to get more updated information because those images, that video that you're looking at here from just in this last hour is tough to grapple with. Not only when you're looking at some of this drone footage, you're just seeing the way that you described it, pancake down here. This was a 12-story building. 55 units are a part of that part of the complex that collapsed there. We now know that there are 99 individuals that are unaccounted for, is what the Miami-Dade County Police are now telling us. That number 99, though, we hope will go down because that is the number that they are saying, essentially the number of individuals they've identified who could have possibly been in that collapse section of the complex. You know, this is Florida. There's a large number of snowbirds. The hope is that there are a good number of those units that were not occupied, that folks were out of town and were not actually here, but they've put that number at 99 individuals. At the same time, we know that there's just even one particular family, the Bart Gomez family. I just talked to a family member of theirs in Colombia. They were visiting here. Their daughter, Valeria, was here for a tennis lesson. Again, those three individuals, the mother, the father, and their 14-year-old daughter, are currently among those 99 unaccounted for. There was also, just in this last 2 hours, there was a fire that was part of this rubble here. And you saw the smoke that was coming up here. This has been a tough afternoon. Yeah. In similar situations, you know, in earthquakes, sometimes there's those gaps there where folks are able to survive even for days if they have a gap of oxygen. But this has been a tough afternoon here in Surfside, Florida. Allison.
No doubt, Vaughn, and we hope what you said could be possible is true, that maybe we'll be fortunate in those folks that they haven't accounted for yet. We're just out of town. That would be wonderful. How about the families of those missing residents? What have you heard from them? What are they telling you? They must be absolutely distraught today.
Because of largely the unknown. You know, there's folks that are reaching out to the reunification center from around not only the country, but also Paraguay. We now know that there are 6 missing individuals related, family members of the First Lady of Paraguay. This is frankly an international incident when you have upwards of 100 people that are unaccounted for. Just the Unification Center is about a mile away from where we are right now, and folks here from Florida are showing up with photos of their missing relatives and friends here. And the reality is that this is still very much of a live situation on the ground here. You can see that brown building is the part of the complex that is still standing. We're quite a ways away here because gas has been turned off, electrical and water have been turned off, because there are still questions as to what made that northeast tower of this complex collapse. Was it a potential sinkhole? Was it related to a gas explosion? We do not know, and that's why that tower specifically has been deemed unstable. We don't know what this area will be looking like here in the coming days, but about a mile away from here is where that reunification center is here. His family members and friends are showing up desperate to understand what this search rescue is going to be looking like here as their family members and their friends remain missing here.
Oh, God. Vaughn, we're looking at video now, I mean, of bunk beds collapsed on top of each other and exposed balconies just looking like they're about to dangle off the edge. It's really just blows your mind when you look at it, just the video after video after video. I know you've mentioned that it is totally too early to know what caused this, but have authorities ruled anything out? Have they given you any clues as to a direction they're leaning in, or have they not even gone there yet?
Officials said that they have not been able to even bring in anybody to assess the situation. Earlier today, the Miami-Dade County Commissioner who represents this area said that we're still a long ways away from those types of individuals who are able to study and make that assessment from beginning to understand. You can see those images, rubble, 12 layers of rubble still remain. It's tough here. You know, I think it's important to note where we are. This is Collins Avenue, and that stretch of road extends from Miami Beach up here to Surfside. And this is sort of the main hotel, restaurant, eating corridor here that parallels Atlantic Beach here. This is a tough situation because not only are there individuals who live in these places, but also that we're visiting here. Allison.
Yeah, Vaughn, anyone who's been to Miami knows that area, knows those streets so well. It is certainly a popular part of town. I know it has been a tough day for everyone there and a tough story to be reporting on. We thank you so much for your work today, my friend.
They are in search and rescue mode. They are trying to identify survivors. I know they have made contact with some, and they are doing everything they can to save lives.
Former Miami-Dade Fire Chief Dave Downey joining me now. Chief, thank you so much for being with us. You, no doubt, have led many search and rescue efforts. Would you tell us a little bit about what those crews are doing right now, what a search and rescue effort like this on a building collapse like this is like?
So these crews, you know, all have significant training, even from the initial first responders that were tasked with getting those that weren't trapped, that were on top of the rubble or lightly trapped, evacuated out. And now we bring in our technical search experts. And these are firefighters that comprise a urban search and rescue team that is one of the 28 national teams in the United States. So they're highly trained, highly experienced search and rescue providers. And what they're doing now is they're going through a methodical void search. Now it gets a little bit tougher. We're trying to figure out where the voids are, where survivors could be located, and working that on a very methodical step-by-step process. It's not going to be over with in an hour or a day. They'll be running canines that'll get alerted to sense of live survivors, and then they'll move in with audio and visual search capabilities.
Those of us who have no expertise and no knowledge of how this works obviously have a lot of questions. We don't understand why you might do some things versus others. And there are some people who are wondering why you just wouldn't move the big pieces of debris. Why wouldn't you just relocate things to find the victims? Why can't you exactly do something like that so quickly?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. The issue is that you have a part of the building that's still up, and it's unsupported. So you have the danger of a secondary collapse. You can see all of that debris hanging off where the collapse occurred and the likelihood of that falling off as well. And then within the rubble, as you start moving rubble, you also cause things to shift. So the goal really is to meticulously search and maybe just put a hole in some concrete and put a camera in there or a listening device in there. And then once you're sure that there's a survivor, then you take the efforts and the measurable risk to stabilize the area and affect the rescue. But it's one of these things that takes a lot of time. The last thing we want to do is move in heavy equipment and start trying to delayer this collapse, because it's going to cause further movement of what's already there.
You look at these images, and I can't even imagine what it is like for the people who live there. I can't even imagine what it's like for those crews who are working on that building. It is just devastating and overwhelming. And then we hear the news that there was a fire there this afternoon. How does that complicate things? It must have made it infinitely worse to be dealing with that as well.
Well, today, besides dealing with this devastating disaster, the crews have been dealing with the weather. It's been raining on and off all day down here. They're dealing with high winds, lightning, and now the complication of a smoldering fire, which, again, these are not uncommon in a structural collapse scenario, but they certainly complicate all of the efforts. And what I can tell you is that things are going on simultaneously. The fire suppression is happening, and that's not holding up any of the search operations or the rescue operations. And these firefighters are trained for this, and they're experienced in this. But it certainly would be nice if we could get a break here and, have the ability to find these survivors that potentially are trapped.
I understand the building was under inspection for its 40-year recertification process, which is a requirement in Florida. Could you tell us a little bit about those kinds of inspections? Could that in any way have been a factor here?
I couldn't even speculate on if it was a factor. I'm not familiar with the building. I know there's a 40-year requirement, but I don't even know what that entails. Mm-hmm. I can tell you, in my almost 40 years experience in the fire service, I've never seen a collapse like this from no other outward effects, such as an earthquake.
Chief, we can't thank you enough for your time and your expertise today. And boy, are we lucky to have fire crews like the ones there doing the tough work and trying to get those people out. We're grateful for what all of you do. Thank you so much.
We have a deal, and I think it's really important. We've all agreed that none of us got what we wanted.
The president and a bipartisan group of senators finally agreeing on a $1 trillion infrastructure deal. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Leanne Caldwell is at the Russell Rotunda. NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba is in Raleigh, North Carolina. She is traveling with the president. All right, so the president's saying no one got all of what they wanted. So let's take a look at what's in and what's out. Leanne, I'll start with you. Run us through what's in this deal.
Well, this is a bipartisan deal that was reached on traditional infrastructure like roads and bridges. And part of that, all the roads and bridges component of it, is over $300 billion. And then there's other things in it, too, including the electrification of buses. There's electric vehicle charging stations, broadband as well. So when the president talks about not getting everything he wanted in this bill, he wanted more money for Amtrak. He wanted more money for electric vehicles, for the bus system. But that is just one component. He also wanted a lot of other things in human infrastructure, like childcare and elder care, which we could talk about in a moment. But none of that is included in this bill. This is a very limited piece of legislation, even though it is totaling $579 billion in new money. And Republicans and Democrats are both saying that this is the biggest investment that this country has seen in infrastructure in generations. Allison.
All right, so Monica, let's get the presidential perspective. Where did President Biden compromise in particular here?
And this was something that he was deeply involved in and invested in, Allison, exactly as Leanne laid out. Of course, the more human infrastructure elements, the care economy, that the president said can come later. He's happy right now with at least a bipartisan breakthrough on the more traditional roads and bridges and waterways, expanding broadband internet, all of that. Remember, originally, of course, he had proposed more like $2.25 trillion for this, and then he came down significantly in that counter proposal to Republicans. Those talks fell apart, but then it was really these discussions with 10 bipartisan senators that only took about 30 minutes today to hammer out the final details. But here's where the president's thinking is on the other elements that he does still want to see passed, though it will have to happen through another mechanism.
Republicans and this group did not want to go along with any of my family plan issues, the child care tax credits, the human infrastructure that I talk about. And that we'll see what happens in a reconciliation bill in the budget process. If we get some compromise there.
So that's a critical aspect to all of this, Allison. Essentially, the president earlier today committing he won't sign a standalone bipartisan bill on infrastructure without letting this budget reconciliation process, which Democrats, by the way, have already started, concludes. And because essentially he doesn't want to let just the American Jobs Plan, the more traditional parts of the physical infrastructure, pass without everything else that he cares about in his American Families Plan. So that is an interesting give and take here, because we now know, of course, again, this is a president who campaigned a lot on compromise and bipartisanship, but he's saying, I still want all these other elements of the massive plan, though Democrats are still divided on how big to go on that part of it. And as we know, they've done this before in terms of not needing Republican votes, but they're not all on the same page yet either in terms of how they're going to do that portion of it.
So, Leanne, let's talk a little bit more about what Congress let go of here to compromise, and what are you hearing from lawmakers on that end?
So the bipartisan group and the moderates are thrilled. They came back from the White House absolutely giddy, proud of themselves for being able to reach an agreement and figuring out how to pay for it as well without increasing taxes. So the Republican tax cuts are off the table, and the president's taxes that he didn't want are also off the table. So that was a huge accomplishment for them. But there is a lot of challenges that Democrats have moving forward on appeasing the progressive wing of the party, who say that they are worried that this bipartisan traditional infrastructure on roads and bridges is going to move through without the things they really care about, like child care and elder care, paid family leave. And so there is a commitment from both leaders, the Speaker Pelosi and Leader Schumer, that they will not move one package without the other. Now, how they do that, it's going to be extremely complicated. And can they keep the entire Democratic Party on board? Because it's going to be hard to pass a separate $2, $3, $4 trillion bill and make everyone happy. So, how they do that, one Senator Bob Casey told me they need a blood oath among all members to stay, all Democrats to stay together. Senator Warren, she reverted back to her campaign trail, pinky promise with all the little girls, saying maybe senators need a pinky promise to commit to stay unified, to pass it. They're going to pass this bipartisan package. They also need to pass this much bigger partisan, multi-trillion-dollar human infrastructure bill, Allison.
Leanne, you used the word giddy, and that's not a word we've had on Capitol Hill all that often these days. Let me ask you about the other big news of the day, because there has been a lot going on. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announcing a select House committee to investigate the Capitol riot. Here she is.
This morning, with great solemnity and sadness, I'm announcing that the House will be establishing a select committee on the January 6th insurrection.
Clearly, no joy from the Speaker about having to make that announcement. What do you know about the Select Committee?
Well, she hasn't released many details about it yet, but we can tell you why it is happening, and that's because the Senate Republicans blocked the creation of a commission, which would have much more heft, much more weight, and be more bipartisan in investigating what happened on January 6th and the lead up to it. But since that was blocked in the Senate, then she had to come up with another plan. And the Select Committee, she has decided, is her best option. The way it's different is it's going to be members of Congress. It's going to be led by Democrats. And she said there is no timeline. They'll finish their work when they're done, which could be right in the peak of midterm season, Allison.
Monica, you're in Raleigh, North Carolina, because the president is there addressing the state's low vaccination rates. What is he doing there to try to boost those numbers?
We know already that the White House is set to miss its goal of 70% of all adults nationwide with at least one dose. Instead, right now, the country's hovering around 65%. But here in North Carolina, it's way lower than the national average. It's only 55%. So in particular, the president and the White House wanted him to come to a place like this in order to try to boost those really lagging vaccination rates. Just to give you a little bit of sense and context, it's been at that 55% for more than a week. So we're really seeing this slow to a crawl. And that is something that concerns the White House, who feels they've made vaccinations quite easy. They've continually made this pitch of them being safe and effective. But that just hasn't stopped some folks who still have their concerns. So the president is going to come here to this vaccination site and mobile pop-up, thank the staff for all of their efforts, but also really send a message to people here and everywhere that especially for the younger kids, those 18 to 26, they're really the holdouts so far. And there's a lot of worry about them getting vaccinated, particularly as this Delta variant continues to spread, Allison.
All right, Monica Alba, Leanne Caldwell, thank you both so much for being with us. Border Patrol Chief Rodney Scott is out. The Biden administration asked him to step down. Two sources familiar with the decision telling NBC News. Scott, a Trump appointee, supported the former president's immigration policies, including his signature border wall. NBC News correspondent Julia Ainsley joining me now. So, Julia, what do you know about his removal and who's moving into his spot?
Well, Scott was given a letter where you get what's called the 3 R's as your choices, where he had the choice between retirement, relocating, or resigning. And we understand that he will soon be on his way out. It's actually more of a surprise that he wasn't asked to leave earlier, Allison, considering he was a holdover from the Trump administration and had been so supportive of the former president's immigration policies. But the person taking his spot, Raul Ortiz, is actually kind of part of the same ilk. He was Scott's deputy. He also served under the Trump administration. Sources I've spoken to have said, look, there are a lot of people within Border Patrol who were very sympathetic to the former president's immigration policies, and it may be very hard for the Biden administration to find someone in line with their thinking to bring someone into this role. And just as a reminder, what the Border Patrol does is they are responsible for apprehending anyone who crosses into the border illegally between legal ports of entry. So right now, that's a key position, considering that illegal border crossings are at a 20-year high.
Julie, has Scott said anything about the administration asking him to step down?
Well, he did do a Facebook post, according to some reports, just explaining that he really didn't see the reason for this, that the 3 R's letter didn't give any kind of reason for asking him to leave. But it seems clear just from people I know in his circle that a big part of this is that the Biden administration is looking to eventually replace a lot of DHS leadership with people who are more in the mindset of the president's thinking on immigration. Right now, Border Patrol is responsible for carrying out a Trump-era policy, though, that Biden has continued. That's Title 42 that keeps out most asylum seekers under COVID-19 restrictions. But we do expect that to lift later this year. And when it does, they may see more immigrants at the border. And that means more people claiming asylum. And they will want someone at the helm who the president himself has appointed.
Julia, Scott's out the day before Vice President Harris visits the U.S.-Mexico border. Is this part of a broader push to show the Biden administration is serious about this crisis? How do you read all of the border announcements we've been getting this week?
It's interesting. I don't know that I would directly tie Scott's departure with the trip by Harris, but it certainly does fit into this approach where we're seeing the the administration respond to some of the criticism and some of the pressure? I mean, that Title 42 policy that I mentioned, where border agents kept out a lot of asylum seekers, we know that there are lawsuits that are ongoing and should actually end in the ending of that policy. And then as far as Harris goes, we know she's responding to direct criticism that even though she was in charge of trying to address the surge at the border, she herself nor the president had been to the border. And that will change, at least for the vice president, tomorrow.
Absolutely, it will. Julie Ainsley, thanks so much.
Once again, these judges take action without giving me a hearing. I mean, this is ridiculous. They're doing it based on newspapers.
Rudy Giuliani suspended. He won't be able to practice law in New York because of his bogus election fraud claims. A New York appellate court making that call today. NBC News correspondent for investigations, Tom Winter, is here. Oh, my gosh, we are so thrilled he's back from paternity leave with news like this. Tom, it is wonderful to see you. So tell us about the court's decision.
Sure. Well, it's great to see you as well, Allison. The court today, look, this is a strong rebuke against Rudy Giuliani, and it all centers around the 2020 election. It came out in this opinion today, 33 pages coming from the Supreme Court in the First Appellate Division. And basically, Allison, they came forward and they said, look, the things that Rudy Giuliani said about the 2020 election are, quote, he communicated, quote, demonstrably false information about the 2020 election. They said there was uncontroverted evidence that he did so, that he lied to not only the courts, but to the public as well. And they said that that's not something that they can stomach. They noted that, when false statements are made by an attorney, and I'm reading from their ruling, it also erodes the public's confidence in the integrity of attorneys admitted to our bar and damages the profession's role as a crucial source of reliable information. So that's pretty tough words for Rudy Giuliani today. Again, focusing on the statements that he made, both to the press as well as in court filings and in his testimony, all surrounding the 2020 election and his allegations of election fraud, Allison.
So, Tom, we heard Giuliani there absolutely unhappy about this one. What else are you hearing from him and his lawyers? And what are their options here?
Right. So the thing that Rudy Giuliani took umbrage with, and the things that his attorneys are taking umbrage with, is there was no hearing prior to this opinion coming out earlier today. So it's not as if they were able to argue their case. It is not a final determination. As you said, his law license is suspended. It has not been revoked. And so he can appeal this. Basically, they wanted the opportunity to come forward and say, look, this is why we said what we said. This is why we dispute with this claim and this complaint that was brought by a New York State lawmaker, which is the reason why they took a look at this issue in the first place and essentially state their case. They felt like they were not able to do that, and so they didn't have due process, so to speak, in order to defend his law license, essentially. So that's what they were complaining about. It'll be interesting to see where things go in the future in this. And, of course, the president spoke out on behalf of the former President Donald Trump spoke out on his attorney's behalf today, calling him the Elliot Ness of his generation. Obviously, Ness was the person who went after Al Capone. We'll end up seeing, I'm sure, down the line, Allison, where this all goes with Rudy Giuliani's legacy and if, in fact, he gets his law license back.
Well, we know you'll stay on top of it. Tom, I said it before. It's terrific to have you back. Great to see you.
Thanks. You got it.
The worst is yet to come. A dire warning on climate change in a leaked draft report from the United Nations. So what else does it say? Millions of people are in for a disastrous future, from drought to hunger and disease. NBC News correspondent Josh Letterman joining me now. Josh, you are really the doom and gloom guy today, but this is so important. And there's one line in particular in this report that I think is terrifying. It says, life on Earth can recover from a drastic climate shift by evolving into new species and creating new ecosystems. Humans cannot. Josh, we got no way out. So what are we in for, and how soon is this coming?
Well, Allison, when we cover climate change, we've tried not to focus only on the doom and gloom and to also cover the solutions, because it's so important that people stay focused on the things that we have to do to prevent this crisis from worsening. But there's no way to sugarcoat this report that was obtained by AFP, the French wire service, ahead of its release next year. It says that climate change is going to fundamentally alter life here on Earth for humans. And that's even if we do all of the things that we know we need to do to curb our greenhouse gas emissions. It says that among the effects that we are going to be seeing over the coming years and decades, extinction of entire species, more widespread disease, hunger that will be widespread, rising sea levels, as well as unbearable heat across the country and as well as the rest of the world.
Josh, has the UN commented all about the leak? And you said a year, I understand, we'll get the final version of this?
That's right. So this is a report that is set to come out in 2022, and this leaked early version came out now. I asked the UN for comment on this, and they pointed me to a statement that they put on the website, which says essentially, look, this is just a draft, and they don't comment on anything that is leaked before it's ready to be released. But it is certainly a good foreshadow of what we should expect from the UN next year as they look at where we are right now and what is already inevitable as a result of the fact that climate change has already started. It's here, and it's going to continue, less so, but still go strong, even if we do all the things that we are working to do as a nation and as a world to try to rein it in.
Yeah, an important reminder that we got to keep doing that work because so much damage has already been done. Josh, thanks so much for your reporting today.
Having success in my career, I enjoy celebrating, and that's why I go all out to do whatever it takes to win and to be the best. You know, I feel like Dave is the best at what he do, and I feel like that I was the best at what I did as a player. So we're having a chance to collaborate and create something special.
It is time for The Bottom Line, our daily look at what's going on in the business world and beyond. Today, from the last dance to his first bourbon. That's right. Chicago Bulls star, six-time NBA champ Scottie Pippen is in the bourbon business now, launching his very first spirit called Digits. It's a collaboration with legendary wine and whiskey maker Dave Finney. Guys, it is so great to have you both here. Congratulations on the collab. I would never do a story without doing my research first. Digits is absolutely delicious. I enjoyed a finger of it cooking dinner last night, so thank you both. Scottie, let me start with you. What made you want to get into the bourbon business? I mean, were you inspired by the George Clooney Casamigos billionaires of the world? What's this all about?
Well, I guess that was a little bit inspiring, but I don't know. I just think over the pandemic, I kind of started to tilt the glass a little bit more, and one of my friends mentioned that, hey, you should start your own bourbon. So it just sort of took off from there. I didn't think much of it when he said it, but you know, we started this journey, and you know, he connected me with Dave at Savage and Cook, and we just blew this thing out the water.
So, Scottie, we're just meeting for the first time, but I know Dave. And Dave, I know you take this really seriously. Wine and spirits aren't a job for you. They're an obsession. I know there is no way you would let even Scottie Pippen just show up and put his name on something he had no hand in, especially when you decided to call it Digits and actually put his hand on the label. So tell me about Scottie's involvement.
Well, it started out great. I flew down to L.A. We met for dinner, and about midway through the dinner, I said, look, Scottie, I got a feeling we're going to be friends for a long time, but I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room. You know, basically, I need your commitment that you're going to put in the work, and kind of leaned back and chuckled and, you know, assured me that he would. And from minute one, he has been so involved, like nobody else I've ever collaborated with. From putting the blend together to literally working on the bottling line to doing all the press he's been doing. And it's just been an amazing working relationship, but more importantly, a great friendship. So it's been a lot of fun. And again, I give a lot of the credit to Scottie and Jordan, who put this blend together. And of course, when you have a set of digits like that, those big, beautiful hands. The first time I shook his hand, I think he came up to my elbow. So it was awesome.
All right, so Scottie, I have to ask, because you would think Scottie Pippen can call anybody he wants and have a collaboration, but is it true that you actually called Dave's 1-800 number to get this started? That's the rumor on the street.
Well, it's probably true. It wasn't exactly me. It was my business partner who made the connection. He was in spirit business at one time, and he ended up calling the Savage and Cook and leaving a message. I don't know what the message was, but they responded. So I'm so happy that they picked the phone up and was able to give us a call and make this all come to life.
All right. So, Dave, that's Scottie's side of the story. I have to get your side of it here. I mean, did you think you were being punked when you got a voicemail that said, hey, Scottie Pippen wants to make spirits with you?
I mean, we get some odd requests, but there was definitely a feeling that we may be getting punked. Yeah. But it was like I think it was like a week later when I came down to see you down there, Scottie. So it happened. I mean, to get a project like this launched as quickly as we did is definitely a testament to the entire team.
Yeah, that's amazing. And nothing moves that fast. So, Scottie, Digits is just in Chicago right now, if I understand correctly. Are you keeping this limited to your city, or are you planning to expand?
Well, we're planning to expand, but we wanted to get this first round out to the city of Chicago. This is the city that kind of made me, and we got some great fans here. And I felt like that, I needed to go somewhere where I could get this thing off the ground and make sure that is a success. And, I got a lot of fans here in Chicago that support me. I got a great distributor in Michael Cowell, and we're looking forward to it. I spent this morning signing over 200 cases of bourbon, so I'm all good.
Listen, I know you're partial to the Chicago fans, but we New York sports fans would be big fans of Digits as well. So just, remember us when you're growing this out. Even if you don't like us as fans, appreciate us as the alcohol connoisseurs that we are.
No, we are looking forward to expanding it, but we're going to grow it organically first.
Awesome. Hey, Scottie, I want to ask you a couple sports questions, if you don't mind, because sports are making headlines lately for so many issues besides the play we see on the court. And I would just love to get your quick take on a couple of things. NCAA players asking for compensation. Your take?
I think it's great. I think it's going to allow the players to feel like that it's a fair game for them. And I think it's also going to allow some of these younger players to want to stick around college a little bit longer and not just try to make that jump into the professional league. It'll give them time to mature a little bit more, and they will be ready physically as well as mentally when they go to the next level.
All right, how about Naomi Osaka talking about the mental health pressures of being a pro athlete and some of those painful post-match, post-game interviews? I know you've been through those before. When you heard her make that announcement, your thoughts?
Well, I think we all deal with it. We all know that it's a part of our job, but there is times when, as athletes, we just want to be an athlete sometimes. We don't want to have to respond to things that happen in our various sports. Sometimes I feel like the press is not fair to athletes because they feel like you can't have a bad game, you can't have an off night, and you never know what's going on in someone's head. And even though they try to make the effort as much as they can to get back and do whatever they have to do in their profession to compete, it doesn't always put them at the highest level. So we tend to criticize our athletes when they're not at the best all the time.
Yeah, sometimes we forget that as amazing as you guys are, you're human beings too. We got to treat you like humans. How about Carl Nassib in the NFL coming out? That was a really big one this week, especially with it being Pride Month.
I don't know much about this. You kind of threw this at me, but I think this is something that we continue to see in professional sports, and I think it's allowing people to be themselves and to live their life out and not feel like they have to be sheltered.
All right, so Scottie, besides the bourbon, you've got a memoir coming out this fall, Unguarded. It's described as a raw, unvarnished look into your life. We're so psyched about this one. I can't wait to read it. Can you give us a little tease, a little preview? What should we know?
It's going to be a great book. It's going to be out in November, and you can pre-order it now. It's got some exciting quotes in it from not only myself, but people who are around the circle of Chicago Bulls in the 90s. So it's a great book. Get your copy.
Love it. All right, Dave, I'm going to let you have the last word. If you had to give us the tasting notes, what should we know about this delicious bourbon?
Oh boy, it's hand selected and blended by Scottie and Jordan by our master distiller. I had a little bit to do with it, but I give them the credit. But they really went through and scoured, the best of the best. We allowed Scottie to access to everything, and what they came up with, I think, is amazing. It's I wouldn't say very different from what we do, but that was another important point, is that we didn't want to, just throw digits label onto existing inventory. And so I hate to admit it, I kind of like it a little bit better than our regular bourbon, because it has, to me, a more of a caramel finish and a mid palate that differentiates it definitely from what we do.
Hey, Dave, you said it, not me, but it's real good.
It is. And Scottie, I don't know if you know this, but I'm a collector of first edition, so I'm going to be getting a bunch of those, and hopefully you might even sign one for me.
Dave, come on, you know that. Anything you.
All right, buddy.
I think that can be arranged. Guys, an amazing collaboration. Awesome to have you both on. Scottie, as I said it before, I've known Dave a while now. You picked a great partner in this venture. And Dave, man, you sure hit it out of the park partnering with Scottie Pippen. Thank you guys so much for being with us today.
It's my pleasure.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A protester pushed to the ground an SUV driving into a crowd. Extreme use of force, all caught on camera. But have those officers faced any consequences for their actions? NBC News Now correspondent Maura Barrett takes a look. And just a warning, some of the images you're about to see here are disturbing.
These were some of the violent images that defined last summer's uprisings. Police using force against many unarmed protesters and even journalists.
Whoa!
At the time, these events stood out among hours of chaotic imagery. Some also led to firings and even some criminal charges against police. But a year later, protesters are disappointed in some of the outcomes. Black Lives Matter and other protesters filed a lawsuit against the LAPD, saying the department, quote, failed completely in holding officers accountable after the protests last year. The LAPD wouldn't comment on pending litigation. And in New York, just 5 NYPD officers faced potentially major punishments for alleged misconduct last summer. That's out of 64 cases investigated by the department's Internal Affairs Bureau, according to the city's reporting. One of those cases, that NYPD SUV that drove into a crowd in Brooklyn. The officers driving were exonerated. The NYPD did not respond to our questions about the report. A detailed look at incidents around the country shows an uneven patchwork of accountability for alleged abuses. In May of 2020, 2 college students on their way home from dinner got stuck in traffic near a protest in downtown Atlanta. They were pulled over by police. Minutes later, this happened. The very next day, 2 of the officers involved, Ivory Streeter and Mark Gardner, were fired.
We understand that our officers are working very long hours under an enormous amount of stress. But we also understand that the use of excessive force is never acceptable.
They were also charged with aggravated assault. 4 other Atlanta cops also faced charges. But Streeter, Gardner, and another fired officer, Sergeant Lonnie Hood, appealed their dismissal to the city's Civil Service Board. They say the police chief didn't follow city procedures when firing them. The board agreed. Streeter and Gardner got their jobs back in February, Hood in late May. They can't return to work unless they beat the criminal charges. But if they do, their attorney says they'll get back pay and accrued leave. In a recent interview, their attorney blamed the students for the incident, saying it would not have escalated if the students had followed police orders. By June, social justice protests had spread to every part of the country, including Philadelphia, where Inspector Joe Bologna was charged with 2 counts of felony and aggravated assault for this incident. Bologna was fired. The charges were filed just days later. But on January 15th, a Philadelphia judge threw out the case. He said DA Larry Krasner had not presented enough evidence to show that Bologna's use of his baton was a crime. In February, Krasner refiled the charges. If the case is thrown out again, Bologna could return to work as a police officer. Also in June, the incident that created perhaps the most disturbing in this collection of videos. Martin Gugino, a 75-year-old protester, said he walked up to these police in Buffalo, New York, to ask a question. Instead of answering, they shoved him to the ground and he hit his head. Gugino suffered a brain injury, a fractured skull, and couldn't walk or stand for weeks. He spent a month in the hospital and another month in recovery. Officers Aaron Turgalski and Robert McCabe were charged with felony assault and pled not guilty. In February, Erie County District Attorney John Flynn brought the case before a grand jury. The grand jury chose not to indict the officers. Turgalski and McCabe were never fired, but they can't go back to their jobs just yet. They were placed on administrative leave, pending the outcome of an internal affairs investigation. A Buffalo police spokesperson tells NBC that a status hearing this fall will determine their fate. These outcomes come in tandem with the guilty verdict in the Derek Chauvin trial, where video evidence of George Floyd's murder was the decisive factor. But these incidents show that use of force, even caught on camera, may not result in accountability.
Now an NBC News exclusive. Second gentleman Doug Emhoff sitting down for his first TV interview with Chief White House correspondent Peter Alexander, talking about supporting his wife, Vice President Kamala Harris, in their historic roles. Peter has more from outside the White House.
Hey, Allison, good day to you. Doug Emhoff tells me that he's not a political advisor for his wife, just a proud husband, he says, trying to support her and the Biden administration. He's already embracing this role, traveling to 17 states in these first several months, focused heavily on trying to beat back the pandemic. I caught up with him in Chicago yesterday, where he was promoting vaccinations, especially for communities of color, even as the White House concedes it'll fall short of its goal to have 70% of adults with one shot by the 4th of July.
The nation's first second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, is out front in the effort to combat COVID.
It's going to be fine. I had mine 2 times. No problem.
How do you convince the holdouts to get a shot?
Just trying to talk about facts. They're safe, they're effective, they're free, they're available, and they work.
Emhoff says he prefers to steer clear of politics, but his wife, Vice President Kamala Harris, is facing renewed scrutiny after Wednesday's announcement that she'll go to the border for the first time tomorrow.
As you've witnessed, Republicans have made a big thing out of this. Former President Trump today said the reason she's going this week is because he's going next week. What do you make of that?
Kamala Harris is not driven by any political issues or political pressure. She's really just doing what the right thing is to do for this very important job that the president entrusted her with.
You're a husband. When you see the attacks, when you see the criticism, what do you think?
Look, you're a husband too, Peter. No one wants to see anyone they love attacked or criticized, but like that's part of what she signed up for in this life of public service. It's part of the territory, and for her, like if you could see what I see behind the scenes, is she's just focused on the work, working hard, and getting it done for the American people.
As the first woman, Black, South Asian vice president, do you think that your wife is treated differently because she's a woman and a woman of color?
Probably, but so what? I mean, she has faced challenges as a groundbreaker her whole career. I think she said at times, you know, when you're breaking barriers, there's breaking involved, and breaking means you might get cut sometimes, but that's okay. It's worth it because she's leading a path for others.
Emhoff left a successful career as an entertainment lawyer to support his wife's ambitions.
What message do you hope that your experience sends to other men?
Men have to step up and step up for the people that they love and actually show it. It's manly to love and care about others.
Still, Emhoff admits being thrust into the glaring public spotlight has been jarring. The moment his new reality sunk in,
it was the COVID memorial on the Lincoln steps and the reflecting pond, and that's when it really hit me. Oh my goodness, this is really happening.
It sunk in then.
There's the cameras and the Secret Service, and you walk out and there's soon-to-be President Biden First Lady.
There have been light moments, too, like in April when he was caught on camera blowing kisses to his wife ahead of the president's joint address, a clip that went viral.
Do you ever stop in those moments and think, how did I get here?
Every minute of every day. And sometimes she and I will look at each other and I'll say, you're the Vice President of the United States. And she's like, you're the second gentleman of the United States. So it's just, it is a little surreal.
A lot of people are already talking about who the next president's going to be. Do you want her to run? Is that something you guys talk about?
And we're two people who are not talking about that. We're just so focused on.
So that's hard for me to believe that you walk into the White House. You don't ever say, man, can you imagine being here?
We've spent 0 seconds talking about that. Just so focused on task at hand.
His wife is not the only history maker in the family. Mr. EMHOFF is the first Jewish spouse of a vice president, and he tells me he feels a unique responsibility to speak out against hate and the recent rise in anti-Semitism. As for the vice president's trip to the border tomorrow, he called her recent visit to Mexico and Guatemala successful, despite criticism from both Republicans and Democrats, and says that this is just the next phase in her effort to address the root causes of migration.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.